everyone. As he said, I'm Kaslin Solutions Architect at Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, which is what we are going to be talking about today. And Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, to give you all a little bit of background before we get started, the project started about 2 years ago. You all may have heard of OPC before, and you may have heard of the Oracle Bare Metal Cloud Service. There has since been a name change, if you've heard of these things, and OPC has become OCI Classic, and the Oracle Bare Metal Cloud Service has become Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. So that is the one that we will be talking about today, and I'll talk a little bit more about those changes, and what we do is basically going to be the main point of the night. So to get started, since we're recording this, I have been asked to actually read the safe harbor statement. Has anyone ever actually read a safe harbor statement before? I hadn't. But today you're all going to learn what it actually says. So, the following is intended to outline our general product direction. It is intended for information purposes only and may not be incorporated into any contract. It is not a commitment to deliver any material, code, or functionality and should not be relied upon in making purchasing decisions. The development, release, and timing of any features or functionality described for Oracle's products remains at the sole discretion of Oracle. Thank you. Thank you. On with the show. So Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, like I said, is a very new cloud, but it comes from Oracle. Let's compare that to the other clouds that exist today. So Amazon is obviously a huge leader in the cloud space, and they are really fantastic with running things designed for their platform. You can do a lot of migration with Amazon, but they're really not designed for the types of legacy applications that enterprises have and need to run well. Microsoft is Microsoft. So naturally, they have a lot of great support for enterprise applications that run on Windows. They have great support for things like SQL Server and other enterprise important Windows applications. And they also have all of the normal cloud types of resources that you would expect. Oracle is coming from the enterprise space. When Amazon and Microsoft's cloud projects started, the problem they were trying to solve was getting infrastructure to their own internal teams. They originally created these data centers and these services as ways for their teams to request resources for testing and all of the other functions that they needed. And then they were like, this is a great thing. So then they made it into this cloud thing. Oracle was not like that. As you may know, if you've been following Oracle for some time, we did not always feel that we were moving in the cloud direction. But as cloud became more popular and more enterprises started coming to us and saying, hey, I want to run in the cloud, we listened. And we told our sales teams, go out there, ask your customers what they need. Why are they running in the cloud? Why aren't they running in the cloud? What could we do to make their experience of running in the cloud better? And with that as our background, we are focusing a lot on what enterprises need to be able to get out of their data centers, which is a big thing that large enterprises want. What enterprises feel that they need to be able to run their business critical applications in the cloud, to be able to scale them, to be able to do the kinds of cloud things that they wouldn't be able to do in their data centers. So Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, previously the Oracle Bare Metal Cloud Service, tries to address these problems by providing bare metal instances, which are very high performance, and they're very unique in the field of cloud computing. Like Amazon and Azure don't really offer the types of bare metal instances that we do. And that confused a lot of people at first, the name, because we don't just offer bare metal instances. We have virtual machine instances as well, because we are trying to support not only those legacy applications, but also the ones that enterprises are creating for the cloud. Just because you have a legacy e-business suite application that has been running forever and it's really difficult to manage doesn't mean you don't have teams that are working on cloud native applications or that could use cloud native functionalities. So we support both bare metal shapes and virtual machine shapes, and you'll see more about these later. So a little bit about how we do this. If you're familiar with Amazon, who here has used Amazon AWS before? A lot of people. How many have used Azure before? How many of you have used a cloud at least before? Maybe I should have started with that. Yeah. So several of you have used other clouds before, and the concept of regions and availability domains for us are pretty common in other clouds. So a region is essentially a geographic location that is separated from other regions by a considerable distance. For example, in Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, we have Ashburn, Virginia, we have Phoenix, Arizona, and we have Frankfurt, Germany. So those are 3 regions that are separated by considerable distance. But within those regions, we have what we call availability domains, which are sets of resources that are on different floodplains. They're supported by different power sources, and they're separated by enough miles that you would get high availability of your applications within a region if you deployed into different availability domains.
Are they roughly comparable to Amazon's availability zones?
Yes. Roughly comparable to availability zones, if you're not familiar.
Is it wait a second, what is comparable to it? Is it a region or?
The availability domains.
Availability.
Mm-hmm. One of the big things that sets our cloud apart is our networking. We are very proud of our network being very flat and very fast. We minimize the number of hops between any 2 points. Within an AD, from one host to another, within the same AD, you can expect less than 100 microseconds of latency. 25 gigabits per second bandwidth, and naturally we're a cloud, so scale is at the forefront. And we do not oversubscribe our networks. This is a big differentiator for us. When we set out to build a cloud, one thing that enterprises find somewhat scary is noisy neighbor syndrome. What if my performance suddenly takes a dip because of someone else? We don't want our customers to have to worry about that, so we don't oversubscribe our network and we don't oversubscribe our compute. Another person who gives this talk frequently refers to this section of the slides as our secret sauce. One thing that we do differently from other cloud providers is our hypervisor is not on the boxes. It is in this virtual network layer. So when we give you a box, we want that box to be yours. We don't want to know what you're doing with it. And we don't want to have anything on it that would make you uncomfortable. So we take as much stuff off of there as possible and give you as much of it as possible. So no hypervisor on the boxes, and we keep any code that would be needed to create all of our instances off of it as much as we can.
So this is good for enterprise level, but it's not good for an individual level or a small startup. How is it competitive with the rate with other
prices?
Yeah.
You will see, we are very competitive.
Yeah, because a box costs a lot of money, and if you are giving like a very less, because it's a part of a renting thing.
Yes.
So that will not make any profit for
So in case the recording didn't hear it, or in case anyone else didn't hear it, that sounds like it would be very expensive. Because if you're not oversubscribing, then you have less resources to sell. And
at least there should be a limit. Like this one box is shared between, like, is it public or a private? Complete one box is private, you mean to say, right?
It depends. If you're deploying a bare metal instance, then yes, you get the whole box. If you're deploying a virtual machine instance, then you get a virtual machine on a box.
So baseline, it's shared.
It can be, yeah, if you do virtual machines.
Okay. And when we talk about availability, if I am in SFO or if I am in Seattle, I have a box in Seattle, and if that data center goes down, I will get connected to Virginia. You meant, right?
It would depend on how you set up your high availability. If you wanted to set up your availability between regions, you could do that. The latency would be higher than if you did it between availability domains within a region. But
geolocation, intra-location, interlocation, intra-geo, inter-geo, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So
those are options. It depends on what your applications need.
Okay. And how many copies do Oracle keep of our data? Like,
I don't believe that we do any backups by default.
So if it is lost by Oracle, the data is completely lost?
Yes, I believe so. But I would have to.
I think he's talking the high availability.
The high availability has some
I
replication.
think he has high availability.
So that is the concept of high availability.
Are you asking about the hard drives? Or sorry, are you asking about like the
any data? Like if I'm creating a VM, so it should go in 3 places. It should go and sit in 3 places. If Oracle loses one of the data center, the other should come up. So that data, if I want to back it up and get all the data before I'm leaving Oracle, there should be some data.
I mean, you should be able to do that, but it's not necessarily that Oracle will do that for you by default. Because some customers may not want to operate in a second region. They may want to operate only within one region with the different availability domains. That may be enough for them. So we leave a lot of stuff up to the customer about their data replication and how they would like to protect their systems.
So at the end, data integrity and data availability is always with Oracle ensures that, right?
We should talk about this after to get the details right.
Okay.
But as a general statement, we make certain promises around what our infrastructure will provide you. But when it comes to your data, we try not to have any visibility into it, which means that we will try not to touch it for you if you don't want us to. So we will try to leave as much data replication and your decisions about data replication up to you as we can.
You can answer his question. So this is infrastructure as a service. So you're responsible to actually manage your data.
Okay.
So it's not like
software. It's not SaaS, right? Software.
Correct.
No,
This is infrastructure as a service.
Okay. That was
So yes. That's fine.
Do you have any slide talking about?
I mean, I think the Azure also has the same thing.
They have
depend on how
all
you set
three.
up.
Yeah.
Do you have any slide talking about this storage, like what it's talking about?
That's coming.
Where does the
Yeah.
storage come
Coming
from?
up.
It's coming.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'll move on a little bit. And so the main component of any infrastructure service will be the things that you consume. Our bare metal instances that set us apart, NVMe storage on all of our compute instances. We've got our VMs and all of these other services and storage options, which you'll learn more about in a moment. So like I've said, we provide a variety of compute options for you. Anything from what is it now, 56 core?
Yeah.
You'll see it in a minute.
52, you got it there.
52 core
52, yeah.
bare metal instances to 1 core VMs. And you can do with those as you please. For storage, we have block volumes, we have object storage, we have archival storage, a variety of options depending on what your application needs, and you can set it up accordingly. We were talking about the archive storage actually before everyone came in. The archive storage just released general availability like a few weeks ago, and we're very excited about it. It's very cheap. Maybe I shouldn't say that. It's competitively priced. Yes, that is the words. So if you're interested, you might want to check that out. And then, how many of you have worked with Oracle before in some form? Several. If you've heard of Oracle before, you might have heard of us alongside these database things. So Oracle and database have a very long history together, and a lot of our customers love us for our database offerings. So naturally, if we're going to provide infrastructure as a service, we want to provide the best database experience that we can. So on our cloud, we offer things like Exadata, and we offer RAC, and these other resources that you could use to build your own databases.
Is it beyond the scope of this presentation to talk about the licensing and how?
It is, yes.
All right.
But if you want to ask those questions, feel free to come up to me after, and I'll take some notes for you.
That's fine.
So one quick question regarding, do you have SQL databases options only, or NoSQL, NewSQL, and other options as well?
So our database services are still in development. Like I said, we're only 2 years old, and we're moving very fast, which you will see with the number of features that we've released, and we've released quite a few over just the last couple of weeks. But you would have to look into our database offerings and check our roadmap to see what's coming. Networking, I don't want to get deep into, but basically, however your networking works in your data center, you should be able to recreate in the cloud. You create your virtual cloud network, you create your subnets, and if you want to connect from your data center into the cloud using an IPsec VPN or Fast Connect, we can help you get that set up. So like we were saying earlier, all of these released this week. Congratulations. You get fresh meat. So a really exciting thing that we just started offering are our X7 shapes. Before we were running on X5s, and today we have X7s with 52 cores, 768 gigs of RAM, and up to 512 terabytes of NVMe block storage attached to the instance for the standard. And then we have new VM shapes and GPU shapes as well, which are all very competitively priced, as you will see here. So here's a slight comparison of our new GPU instances compared to AWS's P2.8XL. I think the slide kind of speaks for itself. And I'll move on.
Just a moment. So this slide talks about instance VMs, right? And where are the VM hosted? Is it on a hard drive or SSD or NVMe?
Where is the VM hosted?
Yeah.
That's an interesting question that I have not gotten before. So
you have a box, a node, or anything. So when we request for it, it goes and sits somewhere.
Yes.
So where does it sit? Does it sit on a hard drive, STD, or SSD, or any new technology?
I won't guarantee anything on that because I haven't looked that deep into it. But the VMs are deployed on our X7 boxes, which have NVMe drives connected by default. So I would assume that.
Because AWS also supports, I suppose, they give SSDs.
Mm-hmm.
And Microsoft has two options, STD and SSDs both.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I've actually worked with those myself, the various storage options on Azure.
How do you use the GPU for AI and machine learning?
I'm not a GPU expert, so I can't really answer the question. But if you would like to know more about it, come up and talk to me after, and I'll take some notes for you and get you the information you want to know.
So it's always running on SSD, is that, on NVM? I guess,
NVM.
What is the throughput from the hard drive?
So you would have to look at the numbers that we publish for all of that information. I know that the VMs have NVMe attached to them. As for where the VMs are running, I'm not positive, so I won't guarantee anything. But I do know that the X7s have NVMe drives connected by default, so.
The reason why I'm asking this question is like, this is a very competitive rate which
Yes.
can be offered with HDDs,
Yes.
not the NVMEs.
Yes. We are trying to be very
if it's
competitive.
NVMe, then it's a really good a choice to go with Oracle.
We know that we're getting into the game a little bit late, and we know that our customers have expectations of what they want and what they're getting from other cloud providers. And so we want to be very competitive to make sure that those customers see us as an option for their workloads. So you working in the office, I hear a lot of the time, like, we're releasing this new feature, it's going to be very competitively priced, this is what Amazon is doing, we're trying to do a little bit better, this is what our customer has in their data center right now, we want to make sure that this is a good option for them. So you'll often see a lot of very competitive prices in these types of slides from us.
So at last we are going to go through the portal, right?
She's going to bring up the
Yes.
demo
Yeah.
in a minute. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to go through a demo of the console so that you'll get to see it. Exciting.
Do you run any benchmark or what? Why you say the 2 Oracle GPU equals to 8 AWS GPU?
Because we give you the full GPU. We don't virtualize out our GPUs between different instances. So like Amazon, usually you have their, I don't remember what their terminology is for it, but they virtualize their CPUs so that one Amazon CPU is less than what you would get from an Oracle CPU because you get the whole thing from us. So, make sense? Storage. You had asked some questions about this earlier. We have some of our new instance shapes highlighted up here. We've also got our block storage, which has been recently enhanced. It's gone through a couple of versions, and we're consistently trying to make it better. You can now get up to 512 terabytes per host.
That's 16 terabyte volumes maximum.
Yeah.
And then you can connect however many that is to make it 512 terabytes.
Yeah, which is a lot.
So is it a concept of subscriptions here? Like per subscription we get a 16 TB max storage?
No. It's you provision yourself I think they're in 50 gigabyte increments. You can provision a drive up to 16 terabytes, and then using iSCSI you can hook it up to your box, and then you can do up to whatever 16 terabytes 512 divided by 16. That's how many you can actually mount onto a single VM.
Okay.
Yep,
if that makes
that's
sense.
correct. Yep. And
This one,
something I think I mentioned earlier, Amazon has these different tiers of block storage. We don't. We have one tier of block storage, and we try to make it very competitive and very fast. And object storage, gotta have it in the cloud. So whatever your application is, we try to provide a type of storage that will work for you.
So do we follow any protocol for encrypting data for Oracle?
I don't think that Oracle...
Like SMB or any kind of protocol, which Microsoft uses SMB. Too, right?
I think that that's another one of those things where it's your data and you encrypt it how you want to. But on the drives, I'm not positive. I would think there would be something.
It depends on the operating system that you're installing on there. So that's kind of a little bad question. Microsoft uses SMB because you can actually implement it on Windows, and you can allow Linux machines to connect to it. If you use like Linux, you may want to go with NFS, but that's implementation that you do.
Yeah.
So, but what was your question? Do we encrypt at rest or in?
No, I'm worried about my data. If I'm putting something, it's not getting lost or it's not getting stolen. So if I'm writing, nobody is stealing my data in the network.
So on the block store, you can encrypt the drive however you choose to. So it's literally just a drive that you mount. Like if you mount one of those on Windows, you can encrypt the drive yourself with your own keys. We don't have your keys or anything.
Yeah.
There's on Object Store, I'm not that familiar with it. I've done a lot of work with Block Store on the object storage. I don't know if you can. I think you can specify a key, and it'll encrypt it with it. I'm not too sure on that one. But yeah, the Block Store, you encrypt it yourself.
Yeah. And I'll show you the block storage later, and I think some of this will become clear.
So is there support for an elastic file system? So like virtual, many different virtual machines can join a common file system, and then you do a read-write. Data could be shared across multiple virtual machines.
So we don't provide an elastic file system as a service yet. I believe there are ways that you could set one up yourself if you wanted to using our instances, but that would be up to you. Yep. And this is another one of those slides. I really like this one because in my previous position, I worked with block storage in AWS and Azure and on-premise, and we did not use the SSD IO1 from Amazon because that was more expensive than we wanted to go with this project. And compared to what Oracle offers, they only have one tier and they price it very competitively. So that would have been an interesting option for me in that project. So I think this is a pretty cool slide.
One quick question. So the pricing really depends upon two kinds of things. One is how much data you're storing, and the other is how often are you reading, writing, which is IOPS. So when you come up with the numbers like 1350, what was the criterion? Is there an assumption here that a certain amount of data is stored?
So the subtext down here says 400 gigabytes, 200 or 20,000 IOPS workload.
Okay.
So that's the information that they provide on the slide.
Okay, that's perfect.
Yep.
So still it doesn't give the right speeds, like in what block size it's writing. So like
Yes.
4K or.
Yeah, there's a lot more detail you could go into about how they ran this test, which we don't have just from this slide. I'm not positive if that information is published somewhere for you to see, or you could always run it yourself if you happen to have these instances up. Database, we're Oracle. So these are, once again, we mentioned one of our new shapes. We have enhanced our database on bare metal and rack offerings. Oh, the rack offering is new. Fortis 72 OCPUs, Oracle CPUs. So yeah, if you want more information about this, let us know.
What does RAC stand for?
RSC?
Yeah, rack.
Rack? Like the RAC? I don't actually know.
Real application clusters, I believe. I'm
Real
not sure.
application clusters. That sounds like a thing. Yep. So I'm going to move on past this.
Excuse me. To be clear, that's just hardware that you're offering. No expertise yet.
Correct.
Okay. That's just the best hardware to run your Oracle software on, is what you're telling us.
And this might be a good place to mention, did anyone see Larry's keynotes from Oracle Open World this year? Yeah? So Larry talked a lot about his, what did he call it? Automated,
Data warehouse.
the data warehouse.
Autonomous data.
Autonomous data warehouse.
Autonomous database. That's the word I was looking for. And one thing that is nice about the cloud that our customers are excited about is these new things, when they come along, they can spin them up and try them out and see how they like them, and then spin them down if they don't want them, or scale them out if they do want them. So being an Oracle cloud, you would imagine that we would get something like that available here, and our customers would be able to try it out. So it's a benefit of running in the cloud. Cool. Now move on. One thing that we like to talk about is core services versus edge services. So core services are the kinds of things that you would expect from infrastructure as a service, things like compute and storage and database, networking, identity. Edge services are the things that make running in the cloud more unique, very exciting things. So one thing that we released just 2 weeks ago, I believe, was DNS. We offer our DNS services with Dyn directly through our console on Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. So it's an exciting new project or new feature that came out just a couple of weeks ago. We move very fast with these things. Being around for only 2 years, you can imagine our rate of releasing new features is pretty impressive. And
one quick question regarding the, so does it allow customers to be able to set up the distributed DNS? Like if you have a front-end service that is in different regions, and when customers are connecting to your front-end service, is it possible to set the DNS up in such a way that people are connecting to the nearest data center when they resolve any host name of your front-end?
I believe so.
Yeah, so this one is a Dyn service, so whatever features Dyn supported. I'm not an expert on this one, but whatever features Dyn, I don't know if you're familiar with Dyn or not, but it's I think it was the top DNS provider, DNS service provider, whatever features they supported, and I'm sure that's something that's supported, yeah.
Because this is something that is supported, for example, in Route 53, which is the AWS service.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something that traditionally, if it is not supported in the system, it is kind of hard to do.
Seems kind of useless.
Yeah, because the reason it is hard to do yourself is that you have to depend upon where the request is coming from. So when the DNS resolution happens.
Yeah, I now remember, yes, that is definitely there, yes.
Oh.
The nearest DNS resolution, that's what you're talking about, right?
Yes.
So if you're looking up in Seattle, you're going to get the most nearest. Yeah, that's definitely there. There's also a lot of other features that Dyn has provided that are actually exposed there as well. So
yeah,
it makes a big difference in performance when you have contents located in multiple regions.
Yeah, and there's some cool new features coming out in that area that at some point we're going to be talking about. So.
Yeah. Awesome. We are very excited to be working with Dyn on DNS because they are real experts in their field, so we expect great things. And to kind of sum everything up, large enterprises that want to run their legacy Oracle applications or business critical Oracle applications, we provide a good space for those apps. If you want to run some of these applications in the middle, like database, like Node, like Java, we want to provide a happy space for those as well. And if you want to run Docker, Kubernetes, which are my specialties, you could do that too. We want to provide the whole spectrum of major enterprise applications that your business runs on and needs to be able to function, and the cool stuff like Docker and Kubernetes that your teams might want to start experimenting with. And as a couple of things that are coming up, if you want to hear more from us, we will be at Supercomputing 2017. We have a booth there, and we'll be showing off a few demos. And that's coming up November 12th through 17th in Denver, Colorado. If you're going to that, check us out. And we will also be hosting a Women Who Code event at our office in downtown Seattle near Westlake Center on November 16th, which I will also be speaking at. Yay! And the notification about that will be going out from Women Who Code soon. And if you want to try all this out, we do have a free trial available. So check out our website and go sign up for the free trial.
Is it for a year?
I believe it's $300. Like
1 month.
It's $300.
I'm not sure what the time period is, but I know that
They give
the
you
amount
$300.
is
The same as kind of like what Azure had.
Yeah. So check that out if you're interested. And now I'm going to go into the demo, and also you should follow us on Twitter And you should tweet at me because I'm awesome. So let's go over here. You'll want to see the console. So I'm playing around in, this is going to be kind of difficult. I'm in Ashburn today, and I have a compartment set up. Identity is something that our enterprise customers talk to us about a lot, because it can be kind of hard to manage all of your different teams and organizations all working with the same cloud provider and making sure everyone has the right access and nobody's deploying things they shouldn't be able to deploy and that kind of thing. So compartments are a interesting identity feature in our cloud where you can create different compartments for different resources. For example, I have a Kubernetes cluster hanging out in my container zone. And today we're going to be playing around in Stage where I have nothing. And we're going to create a virtual cloud network to start off. I'm going to go through the basic quick start. If you log into the console and you go up to the documentation link at the top, you will see a variety of documentation, including a getting started section, which will basically walk you through how to do what I'm going to do today. So this is going to be test DCN, and I'm lazy, so I want it to go ahead and create a bunch of stuff for me. Clicking this button will make it create the virtual cloud network and a subnet in each of the availability domains in the region I'm working in.
Did you pick your region yet? Did you pick your location?
The region is up here. Let me exit out of this so that you can see.
Sorry about that, I missed it.
No, you're good. I'm in Ashburn up here.
And what were your choices at the time?
So I logged in directly into Ashburn because that's what I've been hanging out in. But I also have Frankfurt and Phoenix that I've subscribed to. But it depends on your account which regions you will have subscribed to.
What's the total number of current regions that you are running?
So OCI, Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, has 3, just these 3 right now. And we'll have London up in the next several months. I believe it's on the roadmap for February.
So nothing for Asia region right now? Asia,
Nothing
China,
for Asia yet.
Singapore.
No.
Yeah.
Does Oracle have a footprint in China?
I believe OCI Classic has something on their roadmap for China, but Oracle Cloud Infrastructure does not yet.
But
keep an eye out.
Can the users subscribe from India or China or Singapore?
I believe they can, but they will have to use one of the other regions.
But the data will not be in China.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as per China rules, laws, they are not allowed.
They're not allowed.
Yeah. So you might not be able to in China. I know there's a list of the countries that you're able to sign up from right now for Oracle Cloud Infrastructure.
So one quick question regarding the architectural underpinnings before we get into the user experiences. So generally, is the Oracle Cloud Infrastructure capabilities kind of exposed as like REST APIs,
Yes.
which represent the cloud capabilities, and then there is a UX layer through console, and like you have command line interfaces, client
Exactly.
SDKs for different programming languages.
Yep. And if we have time and you all would like to see it, the Kubernetes cluster that I briefly flashed up here, I actually deployed using Terraform, which is a HashiCorp technology that's used for managing cloud infrastructure. And we have our own Oracle Cloud Infrastructure Terraform provider. And you can use that to deploy and manage your infrastructure in our cloud.
Using command line tools and all that.
Yes, and I've also used the command line, and Terraform actually hooks into our APIs to do its work. And there's also a Python SDK, and I'm not sure what other ones.
Java, we have a Java.
Is there a Java SDK? Yeah. So you look into the documentation, you can find the variety of ways that you can manage your infrastructure in automated fashions. So if you'd like to see that after the primary demo, I could possibly do that. Because I just did that one recently. So I'll continue making this virtual cloud network. SVCN, and we're going to create everything. So we're creating a virtual cloud network. We're creating an internet gateway because I want to be able to reach the internet because I do a lot of container stuff and I want to be able to reach Docker Hub. And that's a good question. You'd think that I could. I just, yeah. Too big?
No.
No. Can't be too big.
Is that good? All right. So, DNS host names. So I want to be able to have host names that I can resolve. Default route table. We've got our subnets, and those will have their own security lists that I can modify depending on what I want to put in those subnets. And I'm just going to create all of this. And if you want to modify all of this stuff and make it your own, you can certainly do that, but I'm just using the simple wizard for this demo. And so we've got
sort of piggyback from his question. Can you do that via command line or? Is that
yes. Well, I don't know if the wizard functionality per se is available in all of the different automated forms, but you can deploy all of this using the APIs.
And one other question, that if you have leveraged wizards, is there a way to export all this configuration into a standard format like JSON or something, so that you can then modify it and kind of import it back into the system? If you need to make any modifications, you get an opportunity of leveraging the wizards and still get precisely what you want.
I believe the best way to do that would be to use Terraform right now. So using Terraform, you can stand up your environment and it keeps your state. And if you want to make changes to your state, you can do them through Terraform. And you can deploy those as many times as you need to. They're repeatable. So I believe that would be the way to solve that.
So, on this kind of general area about standing up environments, do you have comparable, let's say AWS touts Chef and Puppet and Elastic Beanstalk, CloudFormation and all these, and I'm just wondering what Oracle is, maybe you don't have it now, but is it on the roadmap to add those kinds of?
So a question about like Chef and Puppet and the variety of tools that you can use to manage things. We just, I believe, finally released a Chef Knife plugin, and I believe more will be coming in that area. We move very fast. So one day you just look and you're like, oh, now I can use Chef because I've got a Chef Knife. All right then. But yes, so there's the Chef Knife now, and I believe there'll be more coming on that.
Yeah, we're definitely making some investments in that area right now.
We want you to be able to manage your stuff however you see fit. So, and we've got our virtual cloud network now. This is going to be interesting. I don't think I've ever made it this big before. Oh yeah, it's on the side, isn't it? Yep. This is weird. Yeah. So now I've got my VCN. I'm going to create an instance. So I'm going to call this test instance. And like I was saying, day one, I walked in and I was going through this process. I usually work with Ubuntu, so I'm going to do that. And then I get to the shape, and it's like, oh, I could just deploy 36 cores if I wanted to. An entire bare metal machine, an entire 52 cores now with the X7s. And then the naming conventions are pretty easy to understand. They're also in the documentation. But VM standard 1.1 is going to be 1 core. 2 cores, 4 cores, 8 cores, and so on. And then you've got dense.io, and yeah, there's a lot of variety in here. But today I'm just going to deploy 1.1 because I'm boring, and that's what I do. And then I'm going to use the VCN that we just created, and the subnet that it created for us in our AD.
Do you guys host RHEL or OEL, which is the old Oracle Enterprise Linux, right?
We have Oracle Linux
Uh-huh.
and CentOS and Windows,
Not the RHEL.
not RHEL. So let's do Oracle Linux for a change.
But you can, correct me if I'm wrong, you can upload your own image and deploy it, right?
So they are bare metal machines. So if you wanted to run something in a hypervisor per se, you could run KVM. We're working on ways for you to deploy other hypervisors and manage your infrastructure that way. And as for bring your own image, there are a lot of efforts going on in that space right now. So it would depend on what you want to do. You'd have to check the documentation and see what help is available for importing the image that you need. And I need to get my key, which is over here somewhere. I'm just gonna throw that thing in there. Should probably not do this, but I find it easier.
What is authentication supported here? Is it like SSH or some AD, GitHub, or any other authentication levels?
Sorry, my limits are.
Authentications. How do you authenticate here? What kind of authentication you guys? Like
Do you mean for deploying the instances?
For logging, right?
For logging into the instance?
Yeah.
So you have to have a key, I believe. I think it's a little bit different with Windows instances, which I usually don't work with. But with Linux instances, there is no option to set a password.
Mm-hmm.
You need to set a key.
Got it. So I was actually referring to the console.
Within the console, logging into like your account, so I didn't go through that process this time, but you have your tenancy name, and then you have your user ID, and you have your password to log in to the console. And then if you want to access it through the APIs, you have to register an API key that you can use with your user.
Previous screen didn't even ask for in block storage, like if I would have wanted to add like folders to the VM.
Yeah, it does not do that in that section right now, but you'll see here in a minute, it's still provisioning. But I'm going to go into the block storage section and deploy that separately. So the feedback is welcome that you would love to see that in the instance deployment. Sometimes my team will log into the console and just be like, oh, that's there now. They've added a new thing. So this is undergoing improvements.
You just think you would have been asked that question before they started deploying.
If you want to do the block storage, yeah. I think it's probably on their list. But, our instance is up now.
Nice.
And so I ended up doing a 1.2 because I do a lot of 1.1s. And we're going to go to storage down here, and we're going to do block volumes. We're going to create a block volume. There's going to be something pretty interesting here. Test block. Select an AD. 83. That's the one I put everything else in. And we're just going to use the default size. So that's going to go off and create a block volume for us. And can't see it with how big I have it right now, but normally in the full compute size of the console, it has a little pop-up that says that you need to connect this block volume to your instance. So I created the block volume. And then, okay, so I need to go back to my compute. and attach it. Attach block volumes. I'm going to select that one because it's the only one I have. So I'm going to attach that. Here it is. So when you're attaching a block volume, you can attach it to the VM, but the VM still doesn't know about it until you use iSCSI to mount it. And we don't do that for you. So instead, we give you the commands that you'll need to do that, which seems really weird, but we do that because we don't want to have anything on your instances. If we were going to mount your block volumes for you, we would need some kind of code on your instance that could do that for you. And since we don't want to touch them, we just give you the commands yourself instead.
So ideally, the instances doesn't get any default space with it. Like Microsoft gives like minimum of 125 GB or something like that.
So the VMs do come with some amount of storage attached to them. Like I showed the bare metal shapes before with the, I believe it was 512 gigs of NVMe. So the VMs have an amount of NVMe storage with them as well. And it depends on the size of the VM. And there's some ratio. I don't remember. I want to say it's like, I don't remember what it is. It's in the documentation. You can find out per VM shape what your allocated block storage is.
Okay. So ideally,
NVMe storage.
If I don't even attach a volume, I can still run the instance and save some data, keep some data.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So it has some amount of storage with it by default. Like Amazon, I think they always have like 8 gigs. At least the ones that I worked with did. And so on ours, it depends on what your shape is. You'll have some amount with you to begin with. And then if you want more, you can deploy through this or use object storage or whatever you need to do. So that's kind of my demo. Super simple demo. If you want to see something else or have questions.
When we are initiating calls into the cloud, does the OCI platform export any kind of logs? So like when VM provisioning started, when it ended, you can kind of take a look at that. You can create maybe your own KPIs around how long this provisioning of one VM takes.
Mm-hmm.
And it has like other advantages because if you want to do any price comparisons between like AWS and Oracle, you can see that the provisioning time, for example, is awesome, and so maybe higher price is not bad.
Yeah.
Things like that.
Trying to think if there's something in the API where you can call specifically the state of the instance. I know when you kick off the command to create the instance, it doesn't just like sit there and follow it. But I know that you can get that information in the description of the instance. So if you have the information about the instance such that you can specify this instance, I want to know where that's at, or say all of my instances, I want to know the information about them. So you could parse it from there.
Okay. So for example, how long did it take to provision that instance? That kind of data is also available?
I don't know that we provide exactly how long it took. I know you could parse that yourself. I'm not sure if that's in the description. We have a bunch of information that we output about the instance. I'm not sure if that's one of them.
This actually only usually matters when you are like bringing up a very large number of instances.
Yes.
And their provisioning time suddenly starts to matter.
Yeah, and we recently released some new capabilities around that with the console. But yeah, so you could probably calculate it yourself, and I'm not positive what the logging capabilities are of the API.
Do you have the concept of a service health dashboard that customers, could you show us what that kind of looks like? Or
it's on the roadmap, I think.
Okay.
I understand what you're saying, and I get that a lot because I'm in containers, and like dashboards are a very popular thing to talk about.
Well, I'm curious to know, you say you've been up for 2 years.
Yeah.
What kind of?
Oh, you mean like a service dashboard for the cloud itself?
Yeah.
I believe that's
Yeah,
also.
I didn't want to come out and say.
Oh no, that's good.
How many times have you fallen off?
cloud scale, it's assumed that things will fail.
Well,
Otherwise,
yeah.
they'll recover fast.
Naturally. So that is a question that we've gotten a few times. And I think that there's some work around that area, but I don't think there's anything yet.
Okay. You don't think-
So what is tenancy up there right next to the region?
Yeah, so we have a few layers of like identity. So I'm a user within a tenancy. So my tenancy could be like Oracle could be like a tenancy, and then a user could be like engineering. Doesn't really make sense, but you kind of get the idea. It's a substructure of identity.
It's like a tenant.
It's like a directories.
I suppose so.
Analogy.
That would make sense.
It's like user ID and then organization ID kind of thing.
Yeah, we want to be able to separate out based on your organizational structure.
Some of the other products that Oracle owns, like NetSuite, for example,
Yes.
being able to seamlessly connect those two together, is that on your roadmap?
Yes.
I've done NetSuite work development, systems administration, and I believe you guys own them now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like building things like, some of the servers, databases, and being able to spin up your own environment and having these two basically connect with no problems. That is
Yes.
something that might
So an interesting thing about this is if you're familiar with OPC, OCI Classic, they have a lot of functionality around some of the classic Oracle applications that we're still working on, some of the services. But yeah, so NetSuite is something that I've heard mentioned around a lot. So you'd have to check the roadmap where that is.
Yeah, I'm just really curious. It just seems like a phenomenal play because AWS is using Heroku to pair with Salesforce, and Microsoft has Azure now. So it just seems like the next logical move for Oracle and NetSuite.
Yeah.
So.
We can talk after. Actually.
Yeah.
I'm working on something to do with that. So.
Can you show us something about the scale up and scale down? Like how does it work for a VM? I'm assuming it should be. Can you change the size from standard 1.2 to 1.4 for VM?
No.
Okay.
Not yet. But we have taken that feedback.
You pick a size, you're stuck with that. For now.
For now. If you deploy something as a 1.2, you would need to create an image based on that and then move it. So the building blocks of that capability, I would say, are there, but the automation around it is not. So you could create a 1.2 and say, I want to keep the stuff that I have going on in this and I want to move it up to something bigger. And you could create an image from that and then deploy it as a 1.4.
So they should know one of the buzzwords with every cloud provider is the scale up and scale up, right?
Yes.
On demand and the load, I scale up and then scale up. And do you have anything in roadmap for the bare metal offers? Like I pick a size with the 52 core, I'm done with the holiday season, I want to scale it down. Do we have anything in the roadmap? And if yes,
I'm not positive what's on the roadmap for changing the size of an instance. A lot of what we talk about with scaling up and scaling down is you can scale up something new really easily. You can scale out really easily. So yeah.
Do other people offer vertical scaling?
Yep. Everybody else.
Yeah.
It's on the portal, just go select.
So at least if they do not, you do not offer scale out option, do you like offer those same settings to be saved and then creating a new one with the same settings?
Yeah.
Something like that.
Something like that. Yeah. You can take a running instance and kind of take a snapshot of it and then make a new one.
Linux
You can
is
scale
pretty much
wide.
file based on Windows. Linux, you can copy the file and that's it.
So do OCI virtual machines allow do live migration? Like for example, if you have to upgrade your hardware and there are already customer VMs running on that hardware, are you able to kind of seamlessly migrate the running VMs to a different host so that like TCP connections, etc., can stay up while the machine is freed up, and then it could be upgraded or whatever. Oracle can do anything with it.
So upgrade paths for, say, you're running a bare metal machine that has some of your customers' resources on it. How do you upgrade that machine?
or more so in the virtual machines case, where the virtual machine can kind of live migrate to a new host, new physical machine, and then as far as the customer is concerned, you don't notice anything.
Yeah.
But the VM is now on a different machine, so this machine could be upgraded, or if any maintenance is required, it could be done.
Yeah, that is a very interesting question. Because we've only been around for 2 years, we haven't been through any major cycles of versions of things. And I'm not positive what our path is there. We should talk after, and I'll get you that information.
So like one example is that sometimes just single drives kind of go bad.
Yes.
So anytime you want to do a drive replacement, you have to bring the machine down.
Yeah.
But you know that multiple customers might have VMs running on it. So sometimes one free machine can get multiple VMs from very different hosts, and then on that host you can bring it down and do the upgrade.
Yeah. Oh goodness. Apparently I still have Slack up.
I sent you the question, so I didn't realize your sound was on. The health status somebody was asking about.
Oh, so we do have that up now?
Yeah, it's already live.
I was wondering about that.
Sorry.
No, all
I didn't
good.
realize your sound was on.
All good. But just so people know, that does exist. I was wrong about that. That's how fast these things move. I'm pretty sure this is new.
Yeah, last week we released this feature. And then, not last week, a couple of weeks ago, if you scroll down, actually, it'll tell you status. It'll tell you all of our incidents by day. So you can see like our history over here. So that's gone live.
And this is at ocistatus.com.
Yeah, so you can see this health of our services.
Anyway, as you were saying, upgrade paths. Very interesting. We should talk about that.
So it's been 2 years in services. I mean, the question is more related to that. I mean, service reliability is a key thing for a customer, right?
Yes.
For any startup, right? So if there is any unplanned outage of a physical, we are talking about the VMs. So if the physical hardware goes down for any reason,
yes, I believe.
How do you handle the VMs on top of the host?
Yes. So like, say you're running a VM instance and the bare metal that VM is running on has some kind of issue. You should never know like that you had an issue, because we should handle that situation for you and make sure that you keep running without any trouble. So I haven't actually experienced that myself, and I'm not sure if you get like a notification that you're.
How about your planned updates? Like if the host does have some OS, I don't know what hypervisor it is.
Yeah.
Linux-based hypervisor or anything.
So if there are upgrades within our system that's running your infrastructure, what happens?
What happens if the VM has to be rebooted for planned updates?
So I think availability thing comes here, right? But the only problem here is like the data centers are in US as well as in Europe region.
Yes.
So DMZ data cannot be put to Oracle. It can be put in Oracle, right?
Well, we're working on getting a variety of compliance certifications. I don't know that much about the ones in Europe, aside from that they're very strict about privacy and data sovereignty and that kind of thing. So I'm not positive what we're doing around that, but like I've mentioned, we try not to get our hands in your data. It's your data and we're just hosting it. So we leave a lot up to the customer as to what they want to do with that. And I think that's one of the reasons for that is if you're in Europe and you don't want your data going somewhere outside of Europe, we want you to be able to control that. But I'm not positive where that stands on a legal ground.
So right from this portal, can you show how does the UI look or how does the provisioning looks for a database as a service?
We were actually looking at that earlier. So let's go check out the database section. Database. Here we go. So database systems, I have never launched one, but let's pretend that we're going to, or something. So you would choose your availability domain, just like you do with an instance. You choose your shape. which there are some interesting shapes here. So I should really turn that off. Why is that a thing? So you would choose your database shape if you want rack, if you want Exadata, if you want half, quarter, full. And then there are these VM options. I'm by no means a database expert, so.
Is that 336 really 336 cores?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so that's one
It's
of
a
our,
beast.
that's one of our like larger products that we have.
Yeah.
That's good. Exadata engineering system, flagship product.
Yep.
The
So
price is also impressive.
it is a full rack of Exadata right there that you can just do. There it is.
Let's start that.
I was saying earlier, this would be my equivalent of Mike G. Coleman from Docker. If you've ever seen him present and he spins up the 1,000 AWS instances, this would be the equivalent of that for me. I've never tried to do this, and I'm kind of afraid to try.
In the CPU core count, it says 88. Shouldn't that be 336?
Yeah.
If you go back into the form.
Yeah. If you just click
I
there.
think that must be,
You can configure.
Up to 336.
yeah, up to 336.
I see. Oh, you can change the 88 to up to
Yeah.
336.
Because the way that Exadata is normally sold, I believe, is licensed based on cores. And so, yeah. Anyway.
Can you pick the high availability plans ones, the bronze, silver, gold, platinum, from this
Oh,
window?
sure.
Where is that?
Where is it down? Bring your own license, cluster name, software edition. I don't see anything like that.
Is this a PaaS thing? This is an IaaS, right? I mean, you install Oracle on IaaS VMs. Or is it a
How to
PaaS
describe
thing? I mean,
this?
the way I'm getting confused with two things. One is the way you guys have been publicizing the autonomous database. You pick the sizes and where it. So it's the PaaS offering that you are showing up here, or is it the VM? I still have control on the VM. Can I log in into the VM, or can I just connect only to the database and then you manage the rest of it?
I think that. Do you know?
I'm just kind of getting into this stuff. So I don't know much about Exadata products. So
Yeah, I don't either. I know a guy who this is like his life. So I can get you that information more certainly. But since you have the option to deploy a VM style database in here, I would imagine you may also have access to the VM, but that may not be the case with Exadata. Since it's its own product, we might obfuscate the hardware. I'm not sure.
So I can understand the bare metal and I can understand virtual machine.
Mm-hmm.
Does Exadata fall into the first or the second category, given that either you are doing virtualization or you're not doing it? There is no third option.
Yes. So Exadata, because it's a cluster of machines, I believe would be an accurate way to describe it. I think is why they gave it its own category. I think it's made up of bare metal machines, but since it's a bunch of them together, it's a little bit different.
So you're effectively managing an entire cluster of bare metal machines and not one.
Exactly.
Which is why it
Yes.
has a different.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, the Exadata has a storage cell, so it's a compute and storage combined together in a way database can run high performance.
Oh, I see. Okay. That makes sense.
Yep. You're familiar with Exadata, clearly. Yeah. So you all have now seen Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. You know a bit about who we are and why we think we're important and what makes us unique. So I hope that was useful and I hope you got some questions answered. If you want to know more, let us know.
wondering about the roadmap for like serverless, because that's becoming, containers are almost, they're not gonna go away, but serverless seems to be taking a leap
Yes.
forward ahead of containers.
Yeah, we actually released an open source project recently called Function, which is on GitHub, which is a serverless tool. And I think you'll see more from us on that soon. And containers are my specialty, so I'm working on ways that you can deploy Kubernetes and Docker and things that you might want to deploy on our infrastructure.
That might be another future topic.
It
right?
likely will be.
Kaslin, thank you very much for coming. And we do have Patty, do we have a raffle?